In Argentina, an international solidarity and human rights mission concluded that police committed acts of terror and heavy repression against Jujuy protesters. The Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered a speech to the military addressing last weekend's insurgency attempt. And the Israelis continue protesting against a judicial reform promoted by the government of the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Argentina, protests against constitutional reform imposed by the governor Gerardo Morales in the province of Jujuy were repressed by the security forces. Local media reported that police and security forces violently evicted teachers and members of indigenous communities who were blocking roads at the town of Perico, close to Jujuy International Airport. During the action, troops set fire to part of the camp and an Argentinian flag. The order was issued by a federal court in Jujuy to allegedly guarantee free movement. A prosecutor also requested an order for the gendarmerie and police to act on the roadblocks in Purmamarca and Ledesma. The International Solidarity and Human Rights Mission concluded that police actions against demonstrators in Jujuy constitute an act of generalized terror and extended police repression. The work conducted by the team of social, political, and union representatives led to the reception that over 150 allegations during their visits to the towns of Purmamarca, Abrapampa, Urquía, and San Salvador de Jujuy. Gonzalo Armoa, a member of the delegation, explained that among the victims, they witnessed injuries in vital areas such as the chest and the back. The victims provided testimonies showing their wounds caused by the bullets and stones, and also denounced that they suffered acts of persecution, telephone threats, and the loss of their jobs. And the National Human Rights Secretariat asked the Federal Supreme or Justice System to initiate an urgent criminal investigation into the actions of provincial security forces over the brutal repression of the protesters after complaints received during the visits to Jujuy last week. Secretary Horacio Pietragaya Corti, together with officials from different government agencies, visited the sites of the protests and the roadblocks where he met with demonstrators and visited the detainees to collect testimonies, corroborate their overall condition, contact the families and relatives of those hospitalized, and confirmed that as a result of the repression, 2 people were in intensive care and 3 suffered loss of vision. On Tuesday, the Central Workers' Union of Uruguay held a partial general strike to demand the government to discuss their collective demands. In the framework of the 50th anniversary of the 1973 coup d'etat, Uruguayan workers gathered at the refinery in the neighborhood of La Teja in Montevideo, an emblematic place of the popular resistance. The mobilization has the objective of commemorating the struggles against the dictatorship, as well as to debate the main current demands of the workers of the country. The Vice President of the Inter-Union Workers Plenary, José Lorenzo López, pointed out that it is a day of memory and struggle, because the union always defends rights and liberties. On the other hand, the Minister of Labor, Pablo Mieres, pointed out that the strike proposed by the union government should not have been called because, according to him, it is bad for the people. And the Brazilian government unveiled a plan to decarbonize the Amazon region by replacing diesel-based thermoelectric power plants with solar panels and biodiesel for energy generation. Minister of Mines and Energy Alexandre Silveira stated that the project will require investments of $1 billion and aims to reduce the consumption of energy generated by diesel thermoelectric plants in the region to 40% by 2026. Silveira further noted that by 2030, only 20% of the energy consumed in the Amazon region will be generated by oil-fired thermoelectric plants. During a forum with business leaders, the Minister of Mines and Energy reaffirmed that his government was going one step further by announcing the transition and the return of the Light for All program, which will bring energy to around more than 400,000 people who still do not have access to the service. On Tuesday, the Special Jurisdiction for Peace in Colombia is holding a historic hearing in which ex-military personnel who had never responded to justice will acknowledge the commission of 49 extrajudicial executions. The hearing is being held in the Department of Antioquia, and according to authorities, 8 ex-military personnel will go to court, accused in July 2022 of being the most responsible for the so-called false positives in the municipality of Dabeiba. Likewise, another 17 military personnel who will appear before the special jurisdiction will answer for having participated in the disappearances presented as combat casualties in the framework of the armed conflict. The proceedings will be attended by relatives of the victims, representatives of the United Nations Organization, and high dignitaries of the Colombian government. The Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros proposed the creation of a Latin American and Caribbean Center for Applied Research in Science and Technology that will allow the region to provide joint responses to the main challenges facing the region. The Venezuelan leader made the statement during the working meeting of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States focused on the scientific and technological exchange. Maduro pointed out that the initiative will allow the coordination of policies to address the difficulties caused by climate change.
I dare before you and before our honorable President of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States that from this meeting comes out the proposal, the structure, and the agenda of priority issues, so that from CELAC, sooner rather than later, with the support of the 33 countries, we can create a Latin American and Caribbean Center for applied research and science and technology for our 33 countries and for our peoples.
And a federal court in Toluca, in the central state of Mexico, ordered the formal imprisonment of a group of soldiers in connection with the disappearance of the 43 Ayotzinapa students in 2014. In this sense, Interior Minister Under Secretary for Human Rights, Alejandro Encinas, confirmed that 8 soldiers had been taken into custody and charged for the crime of forced disappearance. Likewise, 4 other soldiers are already in pre-trial detention, including a commander who ordered the murder of the 6 of the young men. The students from the Ayotzinapa Rural Normal School disappeared between the night of September 26 and the early morning of September 27, 2014, when they were traveling via bus to participate in demonstrations in Mexico City. And in the United States, the chairman of the state panel on Tuesday released a new report on intelligence failures prior to the January 6, 2021 insurrection and the attack on the U.S. Capitol. According to the report, the FBI and Department of Homeland Security downplayed or ignored an enormous amount of intelligence information prior to the January 6 event. It details how the agencies failed to recognize and warned of the potential for violence when some of then President Donald Trump's supporters openly planned decision messages and online forums. As a final result, more than 2,000 rioters overwhelmed law enforcement, assaulted police officers, and caused more than $2.7 billion in damage to the Capitol, according to a U.S. Government Accountability Office report from earlier this year. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Russia, the investigation department of the Federal Security Service on Tuesday announced they closed the criminal case about the armed rebellion. It is about the proceedings initiated by the Federal Security Service's management against Yevgeny Prigozhin for organizing the armed uprising of June 23rd, when forces of the Wagner Militia Corporation seized the headquarters of the Southern Military District in Rostov-on-Don. According to the law enforcement agency, in the course of the investigation of the criminal case on the fact of an armed rebellion, it was established that on June 24th, its participants stopped the actions directly aimed at the crime. Meanwhile, the Wagner Group informed through its official Telegram account that Prigozhin arrived in Belarus almost at the same time that the news of the closing of the case against him was known. And the Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered a speech to the military on Tuesday in which he stated that they actually prevented a civil war from breaking out during last weekend's insurgency attempt. The Russian leader emphasized that the actions of the forces of law and order guaranteed the security of highly important facilities and allowed to avoid civilian victims. The military of the Russian Federation, in a difficult moment for the country, stood in the way of unrest, which would have resulted in chaos, Putin emphasized. On the other hand, he recalled that in the confrontation with the rebels died soldiers who fulfilled with dignity the orders and their military duty, and asked to honor their memory with a minute of silence. Lastly, the Russian president reiterated that the determination and courage of the military, as well as the consolidation of the society, played a decisive role in the suppression of the rebellion.
You defended the constitutional order, life, security, and freedom of our citizens. Saved our homeland from turbulence, the fight to stop the civil war.
And more than 50 exhibitors shared the resolutions for renewable energy and electric vehicles, from cars to charging terminals, as the international exhibition Renewable 2023 in Moscow, Russia. TV Break's reporter Alexei Pimenov with the details.
This sustainable development, the International Renewable 2023 exhibition opened in Moscow. Its exhibitors presented solutions in the field of renewable energy and electric transport, from cars to charging terminals for them. This, for example, is a novelty from one of the Russian companies.
The maximum capacity at our stand is 160 kilowatts, so you can fully recharge a car in 1.5 or 2 hours. The slow charging takes from 5 to 12 hours.
Market players say that demand for charging stations is growing, so is the demand for small wind turbines like this one, a domestic startup installed, ready-to-use units controlling their production and connection themselves.
Stavropol, Smolensk, Samara, for example, are such regions and projects that are from 30 to 50 kilowatts. We can get up to 10 applications a day. The demand is growing gradually. Maybe not significantly, but it is gradually growing year on year. We notice it.
Customers from tourist bases to municipalities, the company tells us, the markers of this one. On the other hand, are betting on big business. They install solar panels on customer properties, then they sell the electricity to them at the price that is guaranteed to be lower than the market. All that is needed, free space for the equipment.
This space can be absolutely anything, either a roof of any format, or the ground next to it. Perhaps even just walls. This type of installations also exist.
The power plants remains the property of the firm. Employees say the order portfolio already exceeds 20 megawatts. The exhibitors also showed energy storage systems.
Our company is based in China. We produce solar panels and rechargeable batteries of all kinds, from traction batteries to batteries for start-stop systems, also lithium batteries for home use and other types of batteries.
Ecological approach to energy and more was discussed by experts and market participants at the thematic roundtable, which was part of the business program of the forum. Authorities reps spoke about their support for green technologies, developing know-how and creating new jobs. They say it's the presence of the industry. There are plans to increase efficiency.
Certainly some support is required. Our estimate is that by about 2030 it will be self-sufficient.
It is possible that the projects that won the All-Russian Renewable Energy of the Planet competition will help to achieve the goals. Alexander Labrik, a prize winner from St. Petersburg, proposed storing energy from a wind turbine using compressed air.
When a wind turbine operates, we underutilize the potential of the wind flow at certain times. at wind speeds higher than a nominal but up to the cutoff speed of the wind generator, we don't use the potential of the wind flow. We take the blades out of the wind, and we suggest using it.
Over 50 exhibitors and an extensive business program, the Renewable International Trade Fair has been taking place since 2019. According to the organizers' estimates, the current one has attracted more than 5,000 visitors.
Алексей Пименов, Александр Ермолаев, ТВ БРИКС.
And now we have a second short break coming up. But before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, where you will be able to rewatch our interviews, the top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We have a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. On Tuesday, China authorities reported that heavy landslides have caused the disappearance of 7 people in Sichuan province after several days of heavy rain. The landslide occurred in the 2 townships of West Xuan County. According to the report, more than 400 people are working in the search for the missing people, while 900 neighbors had to be relocated because of the disaster. During the last weeks, the heavy rainfall caused more than 200,000 people affected in the center of the Asian nation, while several southern provinces are on alert for the possible overflowing of the rivers. And heavy rainfall in central southern Chile left 2 people dead and 4 missing. According to the National Disaster Prevention and Response Service, CENEPRED, the most affected area were Valparaíso, Santiago Metropolitan, O'Higgins, Maule, Ñuble, Biobío, and Araucania regions. CENEPRED further said that roads have been cut in over 40 locations, leaving almost 10,000 people isolated. Likewise, more than 2,000 homes have been damaged and 54 destroyed, displacing as many as 5,000 people. Since the start of the severe weather on June 23rd, San Jose de Maipo in the Santiago metropolitan region recorded over 100 millimeters of rain, while Retiro in the Maule region recorded over 150 millimeters. Authorities in Pakistan reported on Tuesday that at least 16 people were killed and 32 injured in several incidents triggered by heavy rains in the north of the nation. In the province of Punjab, at least 16 people died and 23 were injured after a fortnight of incidents in the last 2 days, such as lightning strikes and drowning. It was learned that 17 of the injured are in serious conditions, and that some estimates indicate that the number of casualties in this region could be even higher, with some 20 dead and more than 82 injured. On the other hand, the Pakistan Meteorological Department informed that heavy rains will continue to lash the Asian country in the following days. In other topics, on Tuesday, hundreds of Israelis gathered in front of the Justice Minister Yariv Levin's house to protest against the judicial reform promoted by the government and questioned by broad sectors of Israel. Along with the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Levin is considered the main author of the bill, which his opponents see as an attack against the balance of power by giving greater influence to the executive over the Supreme Court. In turn, the proposed reform will restrict the Supreme Court's power to reject laws by allowing Parliament to reformulate regulations questioned by the body. In light of this initiative, since last January, several sectors, including doctors, universities, and unions, have been holding massive protests in different parts of the country to denounce what they consider to be an attack against the institutions. And during a press conference held on Monday, the spokesperson of the Iranian Foreign Ministry, Nazer Kanani, condemned the illegal sanctions policy carried out by the United States and the crimes that the White House has perpetrated against the Iranian people in the last 40 years.
The Iranian government's point of view is to have a balanced diplomatic relationship with other countries based on mutual respect, but we have never felt respect from the United States toward Iran. The United States government has committed countless crimes against the government and the people of Iran, and it must be held accountable for these crimes. The United States must fundamentally correct its actions against Iran.
On the other hand, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said that during this visit to the region, the Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian proposed the holding of a conference on dialogue and cooperation between the 8 countries that make up the Persian Gulf.
During his visit to the countries of the region, the Iranian Foreign Minister presented an initiative to hold a conference on dialogue and cooperation among the 8 Gulf countries. This initiative was welcomed by the relevant countries. This initiative to establish a platform for dialogue and cooperation is aimed at creating sustainable peace and security in the region. Iran believes that this will help the comprehensive development of the region, which is in line with the common interests of the countries in the region.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.